Hi guys, welcome to my channel. That feels really strange to say, but I guess I'm gonna have to get used to that. Today I thought I'd make a video talking through my birth story, but I had a really positive induction. So I thought I'd sit down, make a video about it, run you through everything that happened. If you've just found out that you're pregnant or you're due to give birth anytime soon and you're watching this, then you know that it's not all scary. You don't need to be worried about what's going to happen. Birth is different for everyone and pregnancy is different for everyone, but you just need to know that it's not always going to be as bad as it seems. But yeah, I'll just get straight into it. So if I start with the actual pregnancy, I originally found out I was pregnant in August of 2024 and I had a miscarriage in November. Luckily, I fell pregnant again pretty much straight away. I think it was between 3 and 4 weeks after the miscarriage, so we were really lucky for that, and I'm very grateful that that's how it turned out to be. But yeah, the pregnancy for me was easy and it was really difficult at the same time. The first trimester I had quite a lot of nausea. That was really difficult for me because I have emetophobia. I ended up getting prescribed anti-sickness tablets from the doctors and that actually really helped go back to my usual self, I guess. And then second trimester hit, and people really mean it when they say that you get a burst of energy. Like I said, pregnancy is different for everyone, but this is just my experience with it. I was just getting deep cleaned every day. I binned pretty much half of the contents of my house. Then third trimester hit and nausea come back, which is expected. I had really bad heartburn. At the point I had to get omeprazole prescribed. That really helped. But yeah, I mean, from 30 to 38 weeks, it was just uncomfortable. Also, the midst of some of them, we were in August and it was hot. We live in a new build. Oh my god, this new build retains heat so much. It was actually hotter inside than it was outside. Got to about 36, 37 weeks. They started talking about a sweep. I was open to anything. This is my first baby, first time mum. Didn't really have an opinion on anything other than a C-section. So they booked me in for a sweep at 39 plus 1. Now I know that that's different for every single hospital. It's dependent on where you live. Chester Hospital was 41 weeks for a sweep. But yeah, so they booked us in for a sweep and it was on the 20th of August. It was around half 6 o'clock in the evening. This is something that I was quite scared to get. Seen a lot of things online about that it could be painful and just like really uncomfortable. Honestly, it was more of a weird sensation than it was pain. The nurse was lovely. She talked me through everything. She explained that it's going to feel like a big hot flush when it happens because it's all the hormones leaving your body at once. It just like brushes up your body and you get all hot, sweaty, and feel a little bit dizzy for like 2 seconds, but then it stopped straight away. I was 0 centimeters dilated. I think I was 50% effaced, so it wasn't that favourable. Not that likely that the sweep's going to put me into labour. And it didn't. I don't think. Didn't have any cramps. There was a little bit of bleeding that come with it and like that's completely normal. I started bleeding pretty much as soon as she'd finished with the sweep and I was bleeding for the rest of the night. Just light spotting, nothing heavy at all. And then I noticed that baby had not stopped moving but stopped moving the way that he usually does. I called triage in the morning and they said to head straight down. They hooked us up onto the monitor. They said that his heart rate and his movements were fine, but because we'd gone in with feeling reduced movements, that they just offered me an induction. They said you can either wait and have a sweep on Saturday, or you can just come in for an induction in the morning. We decided to go for an induction. Friday the 22nd of August, we got up, we packed our bags. Kyle's mum, who's my partner, come round and looked after the dog, so she was staying here for the duration that we were in the hospital. Made our way to the hospital. They put us straight into an induction suite. It was empty. There was one other woman getting induced. They hooked me up onto a monitor. The thing is about when you're going for a reduced movements, you're on the monitor constantly. So yeah, I was on the monitor until about 5 o'clock. They come in at around 4, half 4, and they talk me through my options of induction. So there's 2 options, and the most typical option is basically a hormone in the form of like a little tampon that they put inside of you and it slowly releases the hormone. Or the option of the balloon, which was not the standard option. The standard option that they usually do is the hormones, but again, another thing that I'd seen online loads about the hormones and that they're horrible and it's like 0 to 100 really quick. I just didn't want that, so I opted for the balloon. They were like, yeah, that's no problem. You do have to get a doctor to put that in for you, so we are going to gonna have to wait for a doctor to be available. Then they moved me into another room, and this was about 4:15, and it was just the room that they were going to put the balloon in. The doctor was available, but then she got called to go do a C-section. So we were in there for about an hour. They brought dinner around, a lovely jacket potato, which wasn't the best. It tasted a bit like cardboard. They come back around 6 o'clock and put the balloon in. So if you don't know what it is, it's two little balloons that sit on top of each other. One of them goes inside your cervix and the other one sits on the outside, and they fill it up with water so that it kind of like pulls it down and stretches your cervix as it comes out. But again, it wasn't an excruciating pain. This was the first time that I was really off the monitor in a while. Then they gave us the lovely freedom to go on a nice walk around, so that is exactly what we did. Probably got back to our original room about 7 o'clock. We just sat and relaxed for a few hours, which was nice, and to be off the monitor for a little bit. I was taking paracetamol every 4 hours just preemptively. I went to the toilet and the balloon fell out whilst I was on the toilet. Weird sensation. It was kind of like a big slimy blob just coming out of you. Kyle called the nurses in. They're like, perfect, that's fine. We got taken straight into the delivery room and they hooked us up onto the monitors again in there. So from the balloon being put into the balloon falling out was only about 4 hours. They say it can be in from anywhere between 18 to 24 hours. My cervix was at 4 centimetres, which is what the balloons were filled up to, which means that they just come out. 10:30 till about 12 AM, so midnight. We were just on the monitor again. Now, this is where I wish someone would have told me to eat, because from here on is when I wasn't allowed to eat anything. At about 12:15, they come in and they broke my waters. Not painful at all, didn't feel anything. It was just a strange sensation because you feel all the water gushing out of you, and then you're basically just pissing yourself for the next 5-6 hours, which is lovely. They gave me 2 options again. So they said, we can either give you about an hour to 2 hours to see if you naturally progress, and if you start contracting and dilating more, then we're just going to let you do it by yourself. Or we can put you straight onto the oxytocin and let that do its thing. Another thing that I was really, really scared of was the oxytocin. I didn't want anything that was unnatural going into me because I was just petrified of it going from nothing to everything really, really quick. And again, this was my first baby. I had no clue what contractions were meant to feel like, what it was meant to be like. So I really, really didn't want that to happen. I said, just give me an hour and then I'll go onto the oxytocin after this. This is probably where being calm needed to come into play. So they obviously say that when you're in labour, you need to be like in your zen, in your comfort zone, because oxytocin is produced from calm and peace. You can't produce oxytocin when you're stressed. Oxytocin is the hormone that is needed to make your body contract and help the baby come out. So I started having a little bit of a panic attack at this point because I really, really didn't want to go onto the oxytocin drip, just purely because I'd heard so many bad things about it. That effectively stopped my body from naturally contracting. So I ended up going onto the oxytocin drip. The doctor wasn't available. I ended up getting put on it at about 5:15 in the morning. The oxytocin they kind of do in levels. So they start off low, and I think there's 4 different levels that it goes up by. So they start off low, then they double it, then they double it again, and then they double it again. When they started off, didn't feel anything, was completely fine. Then I think it was about half an hour passed and they doubled it, and again, completely fine. Some mild cramps that paracetamol was helping. Got up to the 3rd level, so they doubled it again, and contractions were starting. I was obviously on the monitor this whole time, so I was having contractions from about half an hour after my waters broke, but I couldn't feel them. You could just see them on the sheet. The nurses were all really confused. They were like, are you sure you can't feel that? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure. Like, I can't feel anything. When I say that I expected this to be like hell. He was back to back, so my experience is not going to be the same as everyone else's, because when you're back to back, your contractions are pretty much all in your back. I didn't have any contractions in my front at all. Period cramps were just above your bum instead. That's what it was at this point. I started asking for the epidural because of the pain for one, but also because I knew we were getting to the stage where soon I'd have to be pushing, and I didn't want to have to wait for the epidural to kick in and it'd be too late. So I just wanted it there and then. I'd say that my contractions started getting strong at about 6:30 in the morning. That's when I started to be able to feel that the paracetamol wasn't really taking its full effect anymore. That's when they started to get to like, these are contractions, these aren't cramps. Then it was time for the epidural to get placed. They started doing it at about 9:30 in the morning. The guy come in, there was about 5, 6 of them. It wasn't a really nice feeling, but again, it wasn't painful. It just wasn't nice. A sharp scratch, like if you're getting your blood taken or you're getting a jab, then they push the tube through your spine. And you could feel that a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit uncomfortable. And then once they placed that, it only took about 20 minutes for it to kick in. Now, I was really, really lucky in the fact that my epidural worked fully on both sides. I could still feel a little bit of pain in my back, like doesn't completely get rid of everything. Are you okay? Good morning. Someone's waking up. Hello. Big yawn. Wow, well done. Come to me. Well done. So, it's been about 15 hours since I'd eaten and about 30 hours since I slept, so I started becoming a little bit delirious. I just kind of felt really, really out of it and I needed some sugar. I was speaking to the nurses and they were like, oh, have you got some Lucozade? And I was like, no, stupidly, I didn't pack any. They sent Kyle on a wild goose chase to go and get some Lucozade. They were like, oh, the vending machines will have it, go to the vending machines. Vending machines didn't have it. The shop wasn't open because it was a weekend, so we couldn't go there. The shop that was open, he went to that one, but they didn't have it. Then he went to Asda, which was literally around the corner, and they only had one. So we got that. So he brought that back and I had that and it helped me have that little bit of energy. Did kind of make me feel a little bit sick though because I was just running off of glucose and sugar. I'm not gonna lie, they did do a lot of cervical examinations, but I wasn't gonna say no because it helped me have like the comfort knowing that I was progressing. Not painful, just uncomfortable. They do get a little bit more uncomfortable as you're getting further along because obviously you're in pain, contracting then, you don't really want someone going up and feeling around. Hello. Time goes so quickly, like so. Hello. I'm just gonna sort him a sec. There we go. But yeah, time goes so quickly when you're in labour. Hours feel like minutes, so from 12 o'clock on Friday the 22nd to now only felt like it had been a few hours, which was good in a way. Kyle was getting his sleep in when he could. I was really struggling to sleep because people were just walking in every second. They examined me about 3 o'clock and they're like, great, you're 10 centimetres, we're going to start pushing soon. But again, they had to wait for the doctors to be ready. So by the time the doctors were ready, it was about 5:10. Between 3 and 5, baby started to get a little bit stressed. So his heart rate was rising out of sync with my contractions. Usually what's meant to happen is you have a contraction and as it gets to like its height, the baby's heart rate rises and then it drops back down again as your contraction slows down. But what was happening is I'd have a contraction, it'd go up and then shortly after his heart rate would go up. So they weren't in sync. They were starting to get a bit worried. There was talks of C-section. I was drifting in and out of sleep at this point, and like I said, this is where it was really difficult for me because I hadn't eaten. So they kind of tricked me a little bit. So the doctor said she was going to do a cervical exam, which she did, put a catheter in and bled all my urine out because obviously I couldn't get up to go and have a wee. She was like, okay, I want you to practice push for me, just so you know what you're doing when the time comes. Breathe in, big massive push, don't breathe out. And she was like, perfect, that's what you need to do when the time comes. Then she was like, let's do another one. And I was like, right, okay, great. We started doing another one and that kind of just led us straight into pushing. I think I was pushing for about 40 minutes. Couldn't feel anything, so it's assisted pushing. They tell you when your contraction's starting and that is when you push. He got a little bit stuck coming down the birth canal because he was back to back. It was a lot more difficult for him to come down, so we got a little bit stuck and I ended up having an episiotomy. I didn't feel because I'd had the epidural, but I could hear it. But I was too focused on getting him out. He was stuck, so about 5, 8, I don't know, 10 maybe, doctors come rushing in. It was all hands on deck then, so they were saying that we're going to have to use forceps, and I was like, well, I really, really don't want to use forceps. Is there another option? And she was like, there's a suction cup, which is like this big circle suction cup that goes on the top of his head. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine, I'd rather that over forceps. So she puts the suction cup in and onto his head, one last push, and she tugs him out. And honest to God, it makes you think how you've got to be so delicate with babies, because she was yanking him out. Like, she was tugging him out of there. She was not rough, but like, it was the only bit that I felt pain through the whole pushing was when his head actually started to crown. Those last few pushes were the really, really difficult part for me. And then he was out and he put him straight on my chest. I was so out of it that I pretty much don't remember any of this. So I was asking for the nurses to take him off of me because I was going to drop him, because I was just literally just drifting in and out of sleep. And they gave him to Kyle. Being stitched up was hell. If there's anything out of this whole birthing experience that was bad, it was being stitched up. Not everything else, I'd do it all again. Even being pregnant, which I really, really didn't enjoy that much, I'd do it all again. But being stitched up from that episiotomy was not nice. You know how I said with the epidural that you could feel the tube going through your back? The stitching, you could feel the thread being pulled through. I had injections beforehand, so I couldn't feel pain, but I could feel the stitches being pulled through and it being tugged. It was either 15 or 20 stitches, I can't actually remember at this point. That was, like I said, the most difficult part. I had to ask her to stop so that I could just have a little bit of a breather, compose myself, and then she carried on. Yeah, the end of labour was just the most intense bit, because there was people all over you, there was people pushing my belly down, people giving me injections. I birthed the placenta, which I didn't even feel, it just kind of fell out, which is ridiculously big, by the way. It's like that big. Pushing took about 40 minutes and he was born at 5 minutes past 6 in the evening on the 23rd of August. About 9, half 9 in the evening, they took us up to the wards, and again, it was really, really empty, so we got our own room. This is another thing that's completely dependent on the person and the hospital, because I know a lot of people that gave birth at Arrow Park that literally got sent home pretty much as soon as they gave birth. It completely depends on your circumstances. I gave birth to him at 6 o'clock on Saturday, and we left on not Sunday but the Monday at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was a little bit difficult that the doctors and the nurses would come in constantly. You'd get to sleep, you'd get about an hour, and then someone would walk in. But yeah, that was my positive birth story. He is now 10 weeks old on this Saturday, which is crazy. Like, I feel like I've only just given birth. Just started editing the video and realised that my camera actually died as I was filming the outro for this. But let me know if you want to see any more videos like this, if you want to know how I found being a first time mum for the first 6 weeks, anything. I hope it helped some of you first time mums or anyone that's pregnant due to be giving birth soon realise that it doesn't have to be scary and that you can turn it into a positive thing. But yeah, he's very settled and tucked away in my dressing gown, so I thought I'd just add a little clip in here to say thank you for watching the video and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Bye.